Entitled Mom Can't Accept That Her 3-year-old Child Isn't a Prodigy. XL Hea. Last week, I started a job as a teacher. Perfect ground for finding entitled parents. Here's some background to start off with. I teach English to children, and while the school accepts children between 18 months and 12 years, my students are between the ages of 2 and 5. The school I work at only teaches English and has different levels based on your child's ability, where the teacher can use discretion to decide if the child can go faster or needs to slow down. Because of the coronavirus, the school also has mostly one-on-one lessons now, but because things are getting better where I am, the school also allows physical classes instead of online-only classes. I have this kid, we'll call him D. He's a 3-year-old boy with a local Chinese father and a mother who is traditionally Chinese. Where I live, English is the primary language of most people, though the command of English is a little skewed with plenty of slang. D's father could speak in Mandarin to his wife, RM. M, however, could not speak any English at all and was Mandarin speaking only. This is where problem number 1 is. While I am local Chinese, I only grew up with English-speaking parents and grandparents, which meant I have almost no command of Mandarin even though I studied it as a second language for 12 years. Once I was out of school, my brain wrung out any knowledge of Mandarin like water out of a sponge. I can speak it at a barely conversational level, but can't explain anything in depth. The second lesson D came for was also my first day working there. While I was briefed on M as she had been the one to sign D up for lessons, I was informed by my co-worker that D's father would be the one dropping him off and picking him up. This was good news for me, because when we let the child go at the end of the lesson, we take a few minutes to go through with the parents' guardians on what the child learned, what they did well, and what they can improve on, along with any recommendations for them like speeding up or slowing down. It's hard for me to explain any of that in Mandarin, so if D's father was the one coming to pick him up, then talking to him was simple. Unfortunately for me, that was absolutely not the case. On D's first lesson with me, M was the one to drop him off. He's only 3 years old, so we were doing a foundation class with him where we basically teach him one letter per hour-long class, how to say and write it, what sound a letter makes, and some simple words that start with said letter. Given that that was his first time seeing me, he was almost entirely unresponsive to anything I said. He kept trying to go out and find M, would want me to open the door, and when I wouldn't because he couldn't just be running off, he'd try to shove his fingers in the gap in the door. He would not repeat after me or mimic my actions, and overall did not manage to learn much. I did manage to get him to say the 4 words that started with the letter B, but that was about all we managed to do in that hour. For all my Southeast Asian people out there, you know how our parents can be. You all also know traditional Chinese parents are even worse, and M was just horrid. When I let D out to go back to M, she was at first cordial, asking how he did in the class and what he learned. I explained to her that because this was D's first lesson with me, he wasn't as responsive, but that he did manage to say the 4 B words taught to him. Now during classes, we have 4 flashcards with the words they're supposed to learn, and we give these cards to the parents to keep in case they want to revise with their child at home. I prefer to give the cards to the kids to hold to reinforce that it's their responsibility to keep the cards safe. Plus, it helps them develop their motor skills when they have to hold stuff. When I gave D his flashcards, M snatched it out of his hand and immediately pointed to the first one, Bubbles, demanding loudly for him to say the word. Since D was no longer in an environment where it was just me and him, he clammed up and wouldn't say anything. M saw that as my failure. Cue our first terrible conversation. You already know who M and D are, and me is. I don't need to explain that. This conversation was in Mandarin, with me speaking in broken Mandarin. As a side note, I can understand Mandarin but can't speak it. Another side note, parents aren't allowed to be in the classroom during lesson time. M, what does this card say? D. M, jabbing her finger into the card, what does it say? When D doesn't respond, I get a death glare from M. M, why doesn't he know how to say it? What do I pay you for me, ma'am? Since this was his first lesson with me, I think he was shy and we didn't manage to get far in the material today. I assure you that dash. M, what do I pay you for? I sent him here so he could learn English. M glares at D and demands that he say Bubbles again, but D is entirely clammed up and just shakes his head. Me, Look ma'am, you need to understand that it was his first time seeing me, and he's 3 years old. He was able to copy what I said during class and point at the pictures associated with words. Then why can't he say it? D, tell me what this card says. Me, possibly because we're no longer in a quiet environment where it's just him with the teacher. He should warm up to me soon within the next class or two and become more receptive to the lessons. I'm sorry if the class today wasn't up to your standards, but please understand it is his first time with me. M snorts at my comment, grabs D, and stalks off. I share some words with my co-workers, mostly us bitching about M and my mentor confirming that she was just like that during D's very first lesson at the school with her. That concluded my first time meeting M, but oh no, we're not quite done. Now it's time for today's lesson. She was even more horrible this time. She showed up 10 minutes late, thankfully with D's father too, and released D into my care. Today, I taught him the letter C, including the words car, cat, cow, and crab. He was a lot more receptive now that I figured out that he was more into physical actions and was able to say all 4 words, plus match the words to the pictures. The class itself was fun, but releasing him to his parents was not. Since D's dad was around, I spoke to him almost exclusively. I explained to him that D was doing well and became a lot more receptive to me and my lessons, but struggled with his penmanship since he couldn't get a good grip on a crayon and had a very light touch, so his movements were shaky. I also explained that he struggled to say car sometimes, since he mixed up how it sounded with cow, but D's dad was very understanding. I recommended he guide D in how to properly hold a pencil at home, and D's dad relayed all this in Mandarin to M. M looked pissed at me when D's dad mentioned to her my comments about D not being able to hold a crayon properly, but said nothing. The school also gives the child the activity book to bring home, and D's book today had a page with a car drawing you to cut out. My co-worker had cut out the entire page so she could cut out the car itself with ease, and the car was colored in by D. M only noticed the bit of the page that was still in the book, and blew her fuse. M, where is this page? How can you give him such a terrible book? Where is the page? Why did you give my son something so terribly made? Me, ma'am, that page was cut out because there's a paper car cutout we needed to use. Here, the car is right here. I flipped the book over to the front page, where D's messily colored car cutout was tucked between the cover and the first page. M's rage subsided a little, but she gave me the nastiest death glare. M, oh, so he couldn't even color it properly. Humph. I wonder why I'm even paying you when you can't teach D how to color a picture. Let me say, teaching children how to hold a pencil is not my job. It is the parents' duty, and if they only expect him to practice for an hour every Saturday, that's their problem. Sounds nasty, but it's true. At this point, I'm exclusively speaking to D's dad and barely even looking at M. M has also gone back to jabbing her finger at the flashcards, demanding that D say what the words are. M, shaking the car flashcard in D's face, say it. Say what this word is. D is visibly stressed, clutching his toy car and staring at M but saying nothing. I decide to intervene. Me, pointing at D's toy car in his hands, D, do you know what that is? D immediately flashes me a big grin. D, car. I clap for him and give him a high five, offering M a smile that only makes her scowl deeper. Pretty sure her muzzle lines and crow's feet are permanent now. I also notice that any time M talks, D's dad looks at her with such tiredness in his eyes, like he's regretting his marriage now. I finish explaining to D's dad on my recommendations for him to practice his penmanship at home. He thanks me, while M grabs D's wrist and yanks him off, stalking off like she's some femme fatale. The school admin apologizes to me for even convincing M to sign D up, saying he knew she was going to be trouble during the sign-up process. I just say it's fine, pack up, and leave. Now 3 hours later, I'm sitting here writing this, thinking if M keeps her trash behavior up, she's going to grow up with a son that hates her. Can't believe I have to see M every Saturday now. I hope she pulls D out, even though I love him dearly. M is just going to keep making trouble every single week and find some reason to throw a shitstorm. Sorry this got so long, and thanks for reading. Being a teacher is just a great place for finding EMS like this, and I'm sure I'll have something new next week when I see her again. Edit. This really blew up, didn't it? Thank you all so much for your comments. I've been reading through each and every single one, and all the advice and love is really driving me to do better by D next time. You guys are right, I cannot let him down now because it's clear he won't get the love and attention he needs from M. I will do right by him. Love you all three. Update, entitled Mom Can't Accept That Her 3-Year-Old Child Isn't a Prodigy, Part 2, The Termination. XL ahoy. I'm back, after almost a month without anything to talk about. Most of the stuff M pulled over the last 3 lessons were pretty tame and not worth talking about. Today though, oh ho 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 ho. Turns out even D's dad is an entitled little liar, so things got interesting today. If you haven't already read my last post about D and M, here it is. It gives a background to M's bullshit and why she's a horrible parent in general, though it did make D's dad seem nice. That is very wrong. He's a filthy liar. Here's the cast, because today's show involves more people. D, my 3-year-old student. M, entitled Mom. Chinese national, very traditional and stubborn. Ed, entitled Dad. Local, very much a liar. S.A., school admin, and the poor bloke that got pulled into this unintentionally. CW1 and CW2, my 2 co-workers. CW1 is the manager of the outlet, while CW2 is a no-nonsense type lady. They're both very nice in general, but not so much to parents who try to exploit their newer staff. Me, the clown that had to entertain M and Ed. Here we go. Again. First things first, M and Ed show up 10 minutes late with D. I know this and that M and Ed are both liars, because I come in and out of the classroom every minute or two to check if my students are here, usually starting this routine about 5 minutes before class begins. Some parents like to drop their kids off early, so I rather be there to take them into my care about they show up a few minutes early. When M, Ed, and D finally show up, D just starts to take off his shoes, get his temperature taken, and receive some hand sanitizer from S.A. This is all important, because it proves why M and Ed are liars. S.A. is always outside at the front desk to receive students. He'll bring students in if the teacher is inside preparing for class or tending to another student, since we're not allowed to leave any kid alone at any given point. If D had shown up on time, S.A. would have brought him into my classroom, assuming I wasn't outside. He would also have done the temperature check and hand sanitizer when they showed up and not 10 minutes late. This proves to me that they were indeed late. Ed, M, and I didn't regard each other much as I took D into my care. I just had him say bye-bye to his parents, a little trick I use to reinforce that now is class time. D follows me in, his parents leave, and all is good. I go about my class, teaching D the letter F. I know, make your F-word jokes. I must admit the number of times I thought F stands for fuck me is a lot more than none. D's writing and coloring has improved a lot since my last post. I taught him the command push hard when he holds a crayon, so he uses some strength when writing and coloring. He was able to do his writing and very aggressively colored a fish, even though I tried to convince him to color the fox, French fries, and frog in his book. He didn't touch any of the other drawings. His reading and pronunciation of words was roughly the same. He could say fox and fish, but not French fries or frog. I don't expect much. Consonant blending is something we usually teach 4 to 5-year-olds instead, and the FR sound can be pretty tough for a lot of young kids, especially those who don't grow up in an English-speaking household. Overall, the lesson was fun and he could even show me how a frog hops, and how a fox sneaks around the forest. Hell comes when class is over. The school has a policy where even if the student comes late, lessons end on time. You do not get an extension to ensure that your child has a full hour class. If you're late, it's your problem. You do not get to push back other students' classes or the teacher's plans after work because you couldn't show up on time. I help D pack up and take him outside 5 minutes before his lesson ends, a protocol that gives the teacher time to talk to the parents and give feedback. When his parents aren't there, I suspect they're going to come late again, as they pulled the exact same thing last week where they dropped D off late and came back late, holding me back from clocking out. CW2 is outside at the front desk as well, sending a kid off with his parents. When she's done, I casually mention that I'm probably going to be stuck outside for another 15 minutes. Me, wish I could go back inside. I'm probably gonna be stuck out here for a while. CW2, what, why isn't your lesson over? Me, yeah, but these parents are probably gonna come pick him up late. They did the exact same thing last week. Came 15 minutes late for class, and thought I'd still give them a full hour lesson. CW2, that's not right. Let me call them. You don't need to extend the class because they're late. CW2 calls Ed and lets him know that class is over and I'm waiting with D. When she's done with the call, she mentions to me that Ed claimed they weren't late, and that I was the one who was late in receiving them. CW2 already suspects they're lying since she knows I check outside for my students before my class even begins, and tells me that if they try to keep me, to mention that I have another online class that I need to go to so they'll bugger off. CW2 goes back in and I keep waiting. 10 minutes later, Ed and M show up. D runs to them and gives M a hug, while I start to speak to Ed. I'm about to give the lesson report so I can just finish up and go home, when he cuts me off. Me, hi sir, sorry about calling you. So, today D learned dash. Ed, hey, what was this about us being late for class? We weren't late, we were standing right here. You were the one who was late in receiving us. Me, I'm sorry sir, I have been coming in and out every minute or so since 5 minutes before class began to check if you were here. I never saw you. I apologize if you were perhaps further down and I did not see you. Ed, this is ridiculous. We were standing here. No one came to receive us. Me, sir, I can assure you I was coming in and out and checking frequently. I did not see any of you out here on time. At this point, SA is coming back from buying his lunch. Ed stops him, and SA looks very confused. Note that SA's lunch begins halfway through my lesson, so he was definitely at the front desk before and when my lesson began. Ed, hey, you. You saw us standing here, right? We were here on time. The teacher failed to come receive us on time. SA, sorry sir. I didn't see any of you. I would have brought your child in if Op wasn't outside to receive you. Sorry, I need to eat. SA excuses himself from the inferno I'm desperately wanting to raise against these fools. I want to just move past it, give the lesson report, and go home, but Ed decides he's not done. Ed, he has no idea what he's talking about. It was another guy who saw us then. Me, sir, he's the only male staff we have on Saturday. You couldn't have seen another male staff behind the counter. But it's okay, I apologize. It's on me this time, I must have missed you if you were here on time. Anyway, here's the lesson report. I deliver my report, showing Ed that D could write and was more enthusiastic in his coloring. Ed notices that none of the other pictures are colored except for the fish. Ed, why didn't he color them? Me, I repeatedly asked him to color, but he just kept coming back to the fish. This isn't a bad thing, it just shows that he has an interest in one thing over another. He was also able to write better, even though I still have to push down his hand and guide him in using more strength when writing. I show Ed the book and mention that it isn't finished, because I tried to focus more on arts and crafts to see if D would catch on to that. I made him a paper circlet with fox ears he colored in and was wearing. Us teachers don't have to make our students finish the book, since it is our discretion as to how fast the class should go. Most parents prefer it so they can see that something was accomplished, but most parents understand when we explain that they weren't into it that day. Ed has very little reaction, so I continue and mention that the lesson reports are now all digital. We used to use a hard copy, a sheet of paper we ticked off and had the parents keep. However, we've since decided to switch to our online reports so it's all done on an iPad on our teachers portal and the parents are emailed a copy. As I'm clicking around on the iPad and filling out my report, Em buzzes over to me and gets uncomfortably close behind me. She's leaning over my shoulder to see what I'm doing, though I'm pretty sure it was useless because she couldn't read English. I also have no idea why she wanted to learn so far over me, it's not like I'm tall. I'm 159 centimeters 5 feet 2 inches and she's at least 167 centimeters 5 feet 6 inches in heels, so there was really no reason for her to peer over my shoulder like that. Once I'm done with the report, I turn the iPad around in my hands so Ed can read it. Instead of just reading it, he grabs the iPad out of my hands instead, almost making me drop the book and flashcards I was also holding. M snorts in contempt as I quickly grab D's stuff so nothing would fall. Once Ed is done reading the report, he shoves it back in my face so I can submit it. I pretend to be cordial, say goodbye, give D a genuine wave and a high five, and head back inside to grab my stuff and go home. I would have just left right there and then, but SA asked me what was up and to fill him in. I relay the entire shit show to him and he laughs, though he mentions M and Ed were probably lying about being on time. I mention that it isn't the first time they've done it, but the conversation moves along to other things unrelated to M and Ed. About 5 minutes after I've gone back inside, I say goodbye to SA and leave the room so I can head back to my classroom, pack up for the next teacher, and scram. When I open the door, I'm face to face with M. We're inside the school area, and she's in her goddamn shoes. Great, sorry to the cleaner who has to clean the floor an extra time because one twat wouldn't take off her shoes. Me, hi ma'am, can I help you M, in broken English, yeah. Go outside. I want to talk you. Yep, she said it exactly like that. Understandable, she doesn't speak English. I internally groan, roll my eyes at her back and follow her out, where Ed and D still are standing. I go up to Ed and ask what I can do for him. And then comes the phrase that made me thrive. No, not asking to see the manager. Ed, I want to terminate D's classes. Bingo. As much as I love D, I cannot handle his parents. And for the record, I never once suggested they terminate classes. This was purely out of their own choice, as I've been nothing but cordial, if not pleasant to them. Me, I'll bring SA out to see you through the process. I head back inside and tell SA, who is still eating his lunch, sorry man, hope I didn't interrupt your pinto bean quinoa salad time, that Ed and M want to cancel these classes. He stares at me and tells me to tell CW1, since he isn't really authorized to cancel classes. I go to CW1 and tell her about it. Me, hey CW1, Ed wants to cancel these classes. CW1, really, why? Whose student is that? Me, mine. I don't know, I guess they've had enough of me. CW1 goes outside to talk to M and Ed, while I go back into my classroom to pack up. I hang around, texting my mom about it all before finally grabbing my bag and leaving. As I'm out of my classroom, CW2 asks how it went. I tell her all about it and her disdain for Ed and M is clear as a cloudless day. CW1 comes back inside and looks to CW2. CW1, CW2, please come help me. CW2, why? CW1, Ed wants to terminate classes for D, but this is only his 5th lesson. He was a full refund back. CW2, didn't the contract they signed say the fees are non-refundable? Do you want me to come help you? Did you tell them you're the manager? CW1, I just said I'm a teacher. Up, who did you say I was? Me, I didn't tell them anything. I said I'd find the admin to start the process, went to SA told me to find you, so I came to you. CW1, oh, okay. Good. CW2, aren't they aware that most students don't adjust for a few months? So what if the kid can't read perfectly? He's going to need some time to pick up. CW1, I told them that, but they were adamant about terminating classes. Just come out here and help me. CW2, in her big mama voice, all right, I got this. CW2 goes out to the front desk. I ask CW1 what went on outside and she tells me Ed and M were demanding a full refund, even for the classes they already had. I'd understand wanting a refund for the classes they paid for but didn't have, but demanding a refund for the ones they had, typical. I ask CW1 to keep me updated on whether Ed and M terminate classes, and that if they do, to let me know if a Sunday 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. class opens so I don't lose out on my pay. I grab my stuff, shove my earpieces in, and go home. So far, I haven't heard from CW1 over text yet. At least, if they don't terminate classes they'll at least request a new teacher. I love D very much, but his parents drive me crazy. Seems like they drive just about every other teacher crazy. I'll leave an update in the comments on whether D's classes are terminated or if they find another teacher. Thanks for reading, and please never be like this.